All right, so what I'm going to be doing today is going over how to use the Facebook API to pull information about a user and just do some interesting things with that. So this is the app I'm going to build. Right now it has a couple different features. If you click the statuses, it takes a little while because, yeah, it pulls your top statuses. The page loads are kind of slow because the request to Facebook kind of takes up most of the time. And if you were to make an actual app that uses Facebook information, it might make sense not to pull that information at the time you request the page, maybe like earlier and cache that information. But yeah, it's something that, for our presentation today, we're just going to get information on page load and do some interesting things with it and put it up. So these are my most popular statuses. Most of them have to do with my offer at Facebook. But yeah, you can check out your own. Similarly, photos will pull photos that you're tagged in, calculate on average how many people like them, and then show you the 3 photos that you're tagged in that have the most likes. And then finally, the events is going to take all of your friends and their events, and then rank those events in terms of the number of friends who are attending them. And before we get started, I'm going to record this. All right. So first thing we're going to do, if we're going to make a new app, is go to developers.facebook.com/apps, and there will be a Create New App button over here. You can specify an app name. It'll make you do a CAPTCHA, and I made one earlier called Michigan Hackers Tech Talk. And once you make an app, you'll get taken to this page. You'll have to fill in your site URL and what app domains are allowed to auth your app. And these 2 values are going to be really important in just a little bit, your app ID and your app secret. So now that we've created an app, next thing I'm going to do is clone the template repo, which, yeah, I've done that. So this is what you should find in that repo. I'm going to be using the PHP SDK to do things. It just simplifies things a little bit, and I write in PHP. You can find the PHP SDK on Facebook's GitHub account, and I'll put notes up afterwards, and you can get links to all of these things. But everything you need from the PHP SDK is already in the FB folder. So the things that are important in the FB folder that we're going to have to modify is the auth.php, which includes all of the code to authenticate a user, and the config.php, which we're just going to put some config information. So auth.php, what it does is it will create a new Facebook object. What a Facebook object is it's part of the PHP SDK, and it's really how you do anything with the API through a Facebook object. So what this will try to do is grab a user, or grab the current user, and if that succeeds, then the user is logged in. Otherwise, we're going to have to generate this login URL. And part of the getLogin URL function is a set of parameters that you can pass in. The parameters I'm going to pass in are what I'm calling scope, or what is called scope, which is basically the list of permissions that the app is going to be allowed. In config.php, you'll have to put in your app ID and app secret from over here. And if you create your own app, you'll have a different app ID and secret. So, all right. So that's pretty much all of the auth code. I use auth.php in pretty much every Facebook app I build. and I don't really change it at all. So you can just copy that and just keep using that same file. Probably change the permissions, but other than that, you don't really need to change anything about it. So if we go to the site right now, we get forwarded to our login page, but there's nothing really on it. So what we want to do is we want to generate a URL or a button for the user to click that will log them in. And luckily, the auth code already gave us a login URL by this handy get login URL function. So all we need to do to log someone in is to give them a button to press that takes them to that URL. So now if we do that, what we'll get is a login button. So when we click on it, we get taken to the authentication page. And you all can do this along with me. I'm coding live on Facebook or michiganhackers.com/demo. And if you see on this auth page, the app will receive basic info. Every Facebook app's going to receive your basic info. It's your name, your birthday, stuff like that, gender, user ID, etc. Your stories, we're going to grab your events, photos, and status updates. And we're also going to grab events and photos from your friends that have been shared with you. So if we go to that, that'll redirect us back to our home page. And right now, these are kind of empty, but we'll fill those in. So that's pretty much all you need to do to auth a user. It's pretty simple. Most of the code is, you can just copy it from your last app. So let's get started by writing the statuses. So what we want to do is we want to first grab a bunch of your statuses. And the way we do that is we do a GET request to graph.facebook.com / whatever you're looking for. So in this case, what we want to do is we want to check graph.facebook.com / that's my user ID or my FB ID / statuses. And that's going to return a list of my statuses. The thing on the end is your access token. You always need to pass an access token for you to get information. And here is the JSON object that gets returned. It's got a list of a bunch of my Facebook statuses and information about each one. A tool that I would recommend everyone use if you're going to be dealing with the Facebook API is the Graph Explorer, because it makes things a little bit easier. So if you go to /tool/explorer, you'll get to this page. It'll automatically generate an access token for you. And you can pick what kind of request you're going to do, what the URL for it is, and then it'll paste it over here in a pretty nice readable format. So I'll be using this a lot. So to actually grab it in our PHP code, what we're going to do is, again, use our Facebook object and call a function called API. And what that does is it just does an API call. So the first thing we're going to pass to it is the URL. So me will refer to whoever the current logged in user is. The type of request, so we're doing a GET request. And then any sort of parameters that you want to pass in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab 100 of them. And what that'll do is give us 100 of your statuses. So then, now that we have that, if we look at this, what gets returned is an array. The first element is data, which has all the data, and then if you scroll all the way down, there's a paging, which gives you some pagination information, a link to the next page of data. So we're going to grab that, because all we really care about is the data here. And so now that we have all of the statuses, what we want to do is sort them in terms of their like count and their comment count. So that's how I'm going to end up sorting it, using both like and comment counts. So in order to do that, first we need to be able to grab a user's like or comment count. So we're going to write a little function up here called getResponseCount, which is going to get either the like count or a comment count, depending on what you pass in. And we'll give it the status and the type. And that will take in a status, take in either likes or comments, and then return the number of likes or number of comments. Now, if we look at the data here, what we see is that there's no actual like count field, unfortunately. What you get instead is an array of likes and also an array of comments that's structured pretty much exactly the same. So what we're going to have to do is grab that array and then do a count of it. So what it's going to end up being is either likes or comments, and we need to do a count of that. So now, just to test things out a little bit, let's get the count of the first status. And that's if everything went all right, we get, if you can see that, there's a little 4 over there, which is the number of likes I have. So that worked out fine. So now what we want to do is get the likes and comments for every single one of them. And yeah, we're just going to call it on each one. And now we'll have an array of, basically we just added a field to each status that gives it a like count and a comment count. And now we're ready to sort them. And to be able to sort our array of statuses using a custom or using our own custom algorithm, we'll have to give it a comparison function. And so I'm just going to write a quick comparison function. And it's not going to be particularly smart. You can probably come up with much better ways of ranking these. But just as a simple ranking, we're going to give each one a score. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the comment count and the like count, but I'm going to give the comments a little more weightage, just because I guess it's a bigger deal for people to like or to comment on it than to like it. It takes more of their day, so I'm guessing it's more important to them. So, and then we're just going to compare the two. And PHP has bunch of sorting functions, so we can just sort statuses by, that's what I called it. Yeah. And now we have a list of sorted statuses down here. And all we have left to do is print them all out. So we're going to go through each of the statuses. And print them out. So first thing we're going to print out is the actual message of it, which is just in a message. Yeah, it's just message. And then the like and the comment count. All right. So now we go to our page here. Oh, that went well. No, it didn't.
It says status. It says status.
Oh, thank you. All right. We have a list of all of your statuses ranked by your how many people liked it. So for everyone who's trying this out, I don't know if everyone noticed, but this 25 people, I think for most people, or for everyone here, you probably won't see more than 25 people liking any particular status or 25 people commenting on any status. And that's true for this one as well. There's actually way more than 25, or a little bit more than 25 people who like that. So the reason why is in our JSON object, it gave us an array of likes, and it limits it at 25. And gives you a link to get the next page of likes. So what we want to do is most people in their most popular status have more than 25 likes or more than 25 comments. And so we want to bring up that number to something like, I'm going to cap it at 100. So 100 likes or 100 comments. And so the way we're going to do that is by doing another request. So this is the ID of my most liked status. So clearly more than 25. And so if we do a request to graph.facebook.com/thatid/likes, what we get is an array of people who've liked it. So what we want to do then is fix our get like count or get response count to do that. So if it sees 25, assume that we probably have more than 25, and so we're going to do another request. So and to do another request, we're going to have to use our global Facebook object. So just bring that in scope. And now our new URL will be the ID. slash the type. Again, it's a get, and we're going to limit it at 100. You can change the limit because I know there's a lot of people who get, a lot of famous people that get way more than 100 likes or comments on each status. So it makes sense in my case, might not in yours. And all right. And now we're just going to return that. So now if we try this one more time, what we should see is we have 35 people who like this, which is how many people actually like it instead of the 25 number we were getting before. And so that's pretty much all I'm going to do on the statuses. There's a lot more interesting things you can do with it. I've noticed a lot of people do like comment wars in or flame wars in your comments. And so that gets promoted way up in this, and it's not really one of your popular statuses, it's just two people arguing with each other. So you might want to write something that detects that and makes smarter algorithms for ranking. But that's how you would get a bunch of Facebook statuses and do some sort of ranking with them. So the next thing I want to cover is this photos. And the first, for the statuses, we just did a basic Open Graph call. So for photos, what we want to do is we want to get all of the photos that you're tagged in. And there's no real obvious way how to do that, how to do a query to look through all of your friends' photos and then pick the ones that you're tagged in. So instead, what we're going to use is FQL, which stands for Facebook Query Language. And what it is it's a query language that looks a lot like SQL and allows you to query Facebook information. And so basically what you do is you give Facebook a SQL style query for some information, and it will return things the way you'd expect it to. So let's do this. All right. New access token here. All right. So here the query that I'm passing is select object ID from photo tag where subject is me. So this is just going to pull the IDs of all of the photos that I am tagged in. And there's a long list of photos I'm tagged in. And you can try this on your own as well. But what we want to do is, that's not really enough for us. We want information about each of those photos. So the nice thing about FQL is it supports nested queries. So we can do so we can look through our photos or the photo table and look for photos where the object ID is in this response. And so I'm going to start writing out that query in photo. So our query is going to be, so we're going to grab like info, which if you can go through, I'll put a link in the notes. You can go through and look at all of the tables that Facebook supports and all of the columns in each one of those tables. But in the photos table, there is a like info, which is just an array of some information about likes. The image source. And now we'll put our subquery in here. And we can even do this here, just to see what the response is going to be. And here's what I'm going to get as a response, where I've got an array of these objects where I have like info, no one really liked this one, and the image source, which if we click on that, we get the image. And the way we're going to send this query is again using the API function. But this time we're going to pass in an array. And that's just going to do that call, and we're going to store the response in. All right. So now what we want to do is, once again, grab all of the likes. So for a single photo, we'll write a function to get likes, or get like count. And this one's pretty easy to write because it's just part of the like info array. And we're going to create an array of these likes so that we can just take an average of it. So what we're going to do is call a function on each one of these photos and store that in, let's get like count, and store that in our likes array. And if we grab the average of this array, which would just be the sum over count, what we'll see is, nope. What'd I do? All right.
Semicolon after query.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, did it log me out? Well, okay, what I'm going to do then is, I probably have some typo somewhere in there, and I'm just going to copy a working version of this that I know I have. For right now. So this should look still pretty similar. We do the same query, and we do an average number of likes. And for right now, I'm just going to comment out that line. And print that out. All right, so ignoring the bottom part of this, on average, 0.86 people like my photos, which is an awfully low number. And the reason why is, for the most part, most of the photos that I'm tagged in, no one likes them, because majority of photos on Facebook, no one likes them. So what we'd like to do then is take out all of the photos that have no likes in them. And so on average, the photos that people actually like, what's the average number of likes on those? Because that seems to be a more interesting number. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a filter and only grab likes that have more than one of them. So if we do that, then we'll see a much higher number. So if I have a photo that anyone liked, on average, it'll have 3.1 people liking it. And you'll notice similar numbers on yours. I think for most people I've talked to, it's around 3. So then the next part, or the next thing we want to do, is grab our most liked photos. And once again, we're going to do a similar thing to what we did for the statuses, and we're going to sort it based off of a function that we wrote. This one just takes the difference of the like counts, which is pretty straightforward. And I'm going to sort based off of that. And grab the 3 most liked, just because that's how many fit nicely on a page. So I'm going to grab the top 3, and the display code is down here. And we're going to display the 3 most liked. So our image source is just from the query source big. And as our caption, we're going to put the like count. And this many people liked it. And if you see here, we have the photo and then how many people liked it. All right. And that's pretty much what I want to do with photos. There's some interesting things you can do, especially with multiple people tagged in a photo. You can see who are the people you're tagged in the most photos with, or for a certain other person, how many photos are you tagged in together? Are you usually on the left or the right of that person? Because you can actually pull, for each photo tag, the location that the photo tag is, an XY location. So you could see whether, yeah, on average, are you to the left or to the right of this other person. So that's interesting. And then the last thing I wanted to cover is events. And so for the events, what we're going to do is, first we want to grab a list of your friends. Secondly, we want to grab all of the events that they are attending. And the last thing we want to do is grab some information about each one of those events, because what we're going to get is event IDs from that last query. So get some information about those events. And that's going to be a pain if we want to write that in FQL, because it's just going to be a mess of nested queries. And so what Facebook allows is sending a batch of queries, and it'll process the entire batch of queries and then give you a response. And so that's what we're going to do for events. And so how do we write this query? Well, what we do is we write out an array of all of the queries that we want to do. And so the way this works is you'll write out the name of the query and then the query itself. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get our friends. And all of these are just SQL queries. And so this one looks like that. And that's just going to grab all of our friends. Next thing we want to do is get their event, get the events that they're attending. And so we're going to get event IDs. And we're going to grab the event IDs from this event member table. And what we can do here is specify another table in this query, or another query. So we're going to select UID from the response from their get friends query. And Facebook will do these in the correct order. If you don't specify these dependencies, you're not guaranteed in what order it'll perform those queries, because it'll try to parallelize them and make things a little faster. And on top of this, we want to make sure that they are actually attending. So we'll check for whether their RSVP status is attending. All right. And then the last query we want to do is get event names. Or sorry, get event info, which is going to grab the photo for the event. It's going to grab the name of the event. And so we're going to write that as the picture, ID, and name from the event. And similar to the last query, we're going to select the event ID from get event IDs. All right. And so that's our list of our massive multi-query. And similar to the SQL query, the way we're going to get this is by running Facebook API. This time the method is a multi-query. And the queries are and so that's going to perform this query and store it in events. And just for a quick sanity check, we'll log that information. That is strange that it keeps logging me out. Thank you. Wow. Once again, I might just copy the, because I don't want to waste you guys' time on this. But if you see this, it's pretty much the same code. We've got EID from event member, and grab the picture, name, and ID from the event, and we perform this query.
So is there any other way for each one of those queries?
So what it'll do is it'll return an array of size 3, where the first element of the array is the response from the first query, the second element of the array is the response from the second, and etc. So I'm just going to walk through this code. So for this, basically what I'm going to do is populate these 2 arrays where I map an ID to a name as well as mapping an ID to a picture, because that's just going to be really useful for me later. And the way I do that is all of the event info is in events, the third element of the results array, which is going to be the response from getEventsName. And FQL, so results 2, what that's going to return is an array where the first element is called name, and it'll return get event names. And the second thing in that array is this FQL result set, which will give the actual response from the query. So we're going to walk through each one of these events and and populate this array, or this mapping from IDs to names and IDs to pictures. And then what we're going to do is grab the response from the second query, event IDs, and basically what I want to do is populate an array of a bunch of event IDs. And a lot of these event IDs will be repeated if multiple friends are attending it, which is good because that's what we want. We want to see which one of these events have repeated IDs in this event members array. So basically I walk through each one of these, each response from select EID, and then I just grab the EID from it and put it in a new array. I'll call array count values, and what that does is it basically creates a new array where the key is any value from event members, and then the value for that key will be the number of times it appears in that array, which is exactly what we want, because then we can just sort that array based off of the value. And so the ones with the highest values are the ones that show up the most, and so they're the one that most of your friends are attending, and those will be at the front of your array. And we'll grab the top 10 and display each one. So the way this array is structured, again, is the key is the event ID and the value is the count. That's how we were able to sort it. And so we're going to loop through each one and print out this, where we have a link to the event, and the way I formed that link is basically the permalink to anything on Facebook is facebook.com/thatObjectID. So that's how I got to that status. That's how I can get to my Facebook profile page, and that's how you can get to an event page. And then put up an image where I'm using the array I used before, and I grab the picture that corresponds to that event ID, and I grab the name for that event ID, and wrap it all in an A tag so that you can get to it really quickly. And what you're left with is this. So the event that most of my friends are attending is this one right now. And there are a couple other events that a lot of my friends are attending. You can go through these. And if you click on it, it'll take you to the event page. It's exciting. So things that this is lacking that you might want to try out on your own. This is currently including events that I am attending. I am attending the Michigan Hash Tech Talk, and so it's not as useful for that to show up there. if this is going to be some sort of suggested events for you to attend, you might want to not include events that you are currently attending. So it might be something that, grab the codes, try it out, make some minor modifications like that. Also, other things that you can do, because that's pretty much the end of all of the stuff that goes into how to build this app. It's pretty straightforward and it's not a lot of code. And it's pretty powerful. You get access to a pretty interesting set of data and you can do pretty interesting things with it. Other things that you can do that I would suggest you guys try out if you have time is something I wanted to build was ranking your friends in terms of popularity. You can grab a bunch of your friends' statuses, friends' photos, calculate how popular each person is depending on the kind of response they get on each one, and then show who are your most popular friends. You could really build clout using no more than, or at least the Facebook side of it, using no more than what we've covered here, which is pretty neat. That's basically the popularity stuff. If you were building an app that needed to get a list of a bunch of photos that each of one of your friends are in, so let's say I want to pull a list of photos that Max is in, say maybe I want to mark it up with like some text and then post it on their wall later, I can do that by using the photo tag stuff that we did earlier. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Does anyone have any questions about anything that happened right here? Cool?
Or about the Facebook API in general?
Yeah.
Are there SDK things for languages other than PHP and JavaScript? I know I've run on the site. So
I've only seen for PHP and JavaScript, but really, yeah, I don't know if there are any besides those. But you could just do, get requests in whatever language you choose for your server language, and that'll still work fine. It might not be as pleasant as using an SDK, but it still works.
And I'd imagine that there's probably a Ruby gem that somebody's written at this point, and probably also for Python module. So they're probably out there.
Yeah. Yep.
Did you write the all-star PHP file?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay. Because I downloaded the SDK, there's no such file.
Yeah, there's no auth.php. It just includes the stuff that there's like 3 files there that define that Facebook object and define some of the functions based on that. But really the auth.php file is, there's not really, you can use it as is for most apps that you build. There's no real reason to have to change it too much unless you want some sort of fancy login scheme. If you wanted to redirect to a different URL based off of if they declined the app or if they accepted it, you can do that with some small modifications to auth.php. Yep. Is everyone good with this? Cool. All right. Do you guys have anything to finish up with?
If anybody hasn't signed up or signed in, we just want to do attendance so we can figure out what kind of turnout we're getting at other events going forward, and possibly post some cool analytics about what kind of, how people find out about Michigan hackers. So we should get excited.
Yeah, and also if there are like certain types of events that you might want to see happen, if there's something you've been really curious about, but we'll find good resources on it, just let us know. We're looking for what people would want to hear other talks on. And if you know a lot about something and want to share that knowledge, definitely let us know. We can see if we can put together something like what Cara did today. So.
Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter.
We're 5 likes away from, or I think 3 likes away from 100, so 3 more people and then we can have 100 likes. Awesome. Likes are like
More pizza?
And there's more pizza.
Yeah.